So our first little bit, I want to go back over filling spaces with values. I've got a section of my page. I've just got some random obstacles really in this section because it's not really about, for this particular practice, it's not really about using values in any particular way. It's more of a filling the space. So you're welcome to follow along with this quick one if you want. Um, you don't necessarily have to. Uh, Paper direction is up to you. It can be horizontal or vertical. Like I said, this is all just mostly exercises. So for this first one, because again, I'm just focusing on filling the space with the value, I'm going to go ahead and use a color pencil just because why not? And the biggest thing is I want to fill this whole background with my green color pencil. And how do I do that in a way that is going to look artful and skillful, as opposed to more random coloring that we might have done in like a coloring book. So the first pointer I would give is really try to make sure that wherever direction you start shading, you want to, like, we're going to use that direction the whole way around. So if I start shading from this corner, all of my lines are going to go in this direction. So once I get to an object, like my first circle here, that means that I'm going to go around that object the same way. All of my lines are still going to be parallel to each other. They're going the same direction. When I get to smaller areas, then my lines are smaller. When I get to larger areas, my lines can be larger, but it's kind of, it helps to hide the pencil line if you can kind of break it up. Because you don't really want to see a seam. We want it to be as blended as we possibly can. So like if I come down here, especially like this area, because I'm going to kind of need to hold on just a second. Ugh. Okay. Because I'm going to need to kind of break up my line. I don't want it to be a solid wall of line. Like I'm going to stagger where these ends of my stroke end, because it's easier to hide that seam when I come back in and fill it in on the other side. The other big pointer here is, notice the whole time I've not referred to it as coloring. Remember we talked about the difference between coloring and shading, and the whole time that I've been applying this value, this color, I am shading it in, which means I'm pressing very lightly. Because my overall goal is I want one solid blended value. So we've got a nice uniform coverage so far. And it's all of the lines are going the same direction, which is helping to keep the page look organized. You can go over it again. That's the beauty of shading, is because we've added this value in so lightly, we can add more layers on top. And by switching up the direction that we're shading, we can start to blend this value together a little bit more. So before I start to add in my second value, I might turn my page. Let's see, we'll turn it this way. We'll turn it this way. That way, when I start to shade, I can start from this corner over here, and I'm shading across completely perpendicular to all of my lines before. And you can see that even the lines that we had when we started the first layer, they're starting to disappear because they're starting to blend in with the layer that's on top. And again, this whole layer, I'm going to make sure that I'm making my lines go the same direction. If they need to be smaller to get around obstacles, that's fine. They can be larger when I get into big open spaces. And this works for pencil or color pencil or most of the mediums that we're using, actually. And I've got 2 layers, but if I want to make it even more blended, I can start on a third. This one, I've got a real giant line across, so I might break this one up. And remember, because I don't want there to be a visible seam, I'll have some lines that are smaller, some that are really long. That way, when I do pick it up from the other side, that seam will disappear. And you can see that, like, yes, I can still see some grain to my shading marks, but it doesn't look choppy and it doesn't necessarily look streaky. It looks more like maybe a very close up of a textured piece of fabric or something, which is a lot more blended and uniform than having, you know, real strong streaks happening on our page.